This young man right here founded Elite Daily, sold that thing for about $50 million. He's one of the great thought leaders on social media today. He's a serial entrepreneur. Forbes magazine called you the millennial mentor, right? And above all of that stuff, getting to know him today, I must tell you, my favorite thing about him is the caliber of man that you are and how generous you are and your spirit and your heart and your character. So today is going to be amazing. And so this is Gerard Adams. Gerard, thanks for being here, brother.
Oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
So inspired right now. It's just like, it's one thing when you look through the lens of social media and you look through on the videos. It's another when you're able to actually come and feel the energy and see it. And most importantly, right back at you, brother. Like there's a lot of successful people in the world, but for me, it's about character.
Yeah.
And not only do you show up for your community, but the way that you are, when I met you and how humble you are and how welcoming you were for me and our team, really appreciate that, man.
Thank you. It's my pleasure, man, to have you here. I've wanted you to do this for a long time, and so the stars aligned. So let's do something great here today. I hope my billing of you was accurate because Gerard has a lot, the very few people you would meet with the success that Gerard's had so young, who has kept such a humble spirit about them too, and such a generous, giving person. So, but I think some of that, having got to know you a little bit, has to do with your upbringing. I always like to take people back just a little bit. And so you grew up a little bit like I did in the middle, right? In the middle class. But tell everybody, just a little bit about young Gerard, even though I still think you're young, but young Gerard. How'd you grow up? Tell us about your background.
Well, I really had an unbelievable upbringing because I had a really strong, group of parents. Like my mother, she just really showed me a love and compassion and empathy and like the things that, a lot of people I feel like don't have that's worth more than anything in the world. And my father was just a strong man, He really instilled the leadership in a very young age. What he used to do is write notes and leave them for me hidden in throughout my house.
Really?
So if I went to go get a glass of milk, there's a freaking little ripped up note in there. If I went to bed, there's something under when I pull the blanket up. If I wanted to go to school, he's dropping something in a freaking notebook for me or something. And there were these, just quotes from whether it was John F. Kennedy, Marcus Aurelius, just different leaders. And for me, you don't really understand it when you're really young. You're kind of like, oh, this is kind of cool again. But I really started to appreciate it as I started to get older. So I grew up with unbelievable parents, hardworking. And they really instilled the work ethic for me. But I walked to school. I took the bus. I loved BMX. I was a skater. And for me, I was just a very creative person.
Even young.
Yeah, I had charisma even when I was young. I used to make my own clothes. I begged my parents for one thing only, put me into art school.
Really?
I wanted to go to art school.
Were you the only child?
No, I have two unbelievable sisters.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
Did he do the same thing for them? Was he writing them notes too, or was that something he did just with his son?
You know what's funny? I've actually never asked them.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to know, wouldn't it? Were you the only one getting these notes?
It was just, he was very protective of my sisters.
Okay, yeah, I'm
sure. You know what I mean? As a dad. And he just, they were way more educated, and of course he nurtured them. With me, it was a little more tough love, for sure.
And your mom, by the way, I just get this feeling your mom's a major influence, just because of how hard she worked. And I watched earlier when you talked about your mom. There's certainly something very special there with you and your mom too, right? What'd you learn from mom?
Well, on both sides of my family, I'm extremely grateful of my heritage.
Which is what, by the way? I know you get asked this all the time, right?
Well, I'm Colombian and Italian, but my mother's side, I'm gonna say like 30 days ago, I went and visited my grandfather. He turned 99 years old. And I said it to myself, I wrote it down, I was like, my grandfather's turning 99 this year. I don't care what I'm doing, I don't care what interview, I don't care who wants to pay me for anything, what business, opportunity there is. I am going to see my grandfather to help celebrate his 99 and ask him these questions about immigrating to this country. And I'm second generation, and I just feel like, my mom's, parents, my grandparents, they came here, with that typical immigrant story with nothing. My grandfather came here first, then he sent back for my grandmother and my mother. My mother was born in Colombia, and she came here. So I think that work ethic and that, and just the appreciation for being here and and making and building a life is instilled in my mom. And then So I really think about that, and that's what really drives me. But it was the moment that I saw my mom working 7 days a week in a supermarket. And that was my first job. I wanted to work. My parents weren't like, they didn't give me things, like I had to earn it. So my first job, believe it or not, was like working at the supermarket where my mom worked. She was an employee there. And I'd never forget getting that first paycheck. And it was like maybe $300. I looked at that paycheck, and I remember just seeing my mom working there, and I'm just like, wow, like, there's no way, like, I gotta get my mom out of this.
You did have this burning desire to do something great in business, right? Yeah. And you met a mentor or something at that time, right? Yeah. Tell them about that story.
Yeah, so, for me, I felt at that time that college wasn't for me, but I kept asking my classmates, I'm like, does anybody know someone?
Amazing you asked that.
Like, does anybody know anybody that is like, that's made it, that's become, we talked about this earlier, not so much self-made, but like for me at that moment, it was self-made. It was like, didn't have to go through the system, can beat the system, and it figured it out. And this internet thing is like really booming right now. Like, does anybody know anybody who's doing this, that's building online businesses, that's going out there and like becoming successful? I was really interested in the stock market at the time, and knows about the stock market. And one person was like, yeah, I know a guy. Wow. And they're like, after class, well, I'll take you over to the house. And it took me over to meet him, and I'll never forget that day. I pull up, and 3-car garage, basketball court, in-ground pool, just phenomenal house. And I just remember walking in, this kid walks down the stairs. I'm like, yo, what do you do for what do your parents do for a living?
I love that, man.
And he's just like, this is actually my house. And in that moment, it was the first time in my life that I finally got to see the success. I got to see someone who's created it. And for me, I'm an experiential learner. It's just the way I am. That's why mentorship is so important to me. It's why traveling is so important to me, embracing new cultures. It's why building these type of relationships. It's for me, it's like I need to learn hands-on, and I need to see it to believe it. And for me, that was the first moment of like, okay, boom, I'm gonna make this happen. I can see it now, and I was like, whatever it is that you know and you've learned, I'm willing to bring value to you, show up every day, work for you. You don't have to pay me. Wow, just let me be a fly on the wall here. Let me serve for you and learn. A lot of millennials are not paying attention to, and this even is to today, they're not truly paying attention to what's truly happening in our economy. They'll pay attention to everything on social media on a daily basis. They'll probably spend, 12 hours out of the 24 hours a day checking what everybody else and what everyone else is doing, but they're not paying attention to their own finances, not paying attention to what's happening with the economy. They're not paying attention to planning for themselves, getting down their vision. So for me, I started doing documentaries on the economy. And then that's what led to then saying, I want to start a publication. And then that was the birth of buying EliteDaily.com.
There's all these millennials watching this, and I have this theory where I say, if you can't save money when you're broke, you can't save money when you're rich. If you either have the habit of saving or the habit of spending, and it's the hardest thing in the world, but if you could even save $10 a month. See, habits matter in personal development and fitness and in faith, and they matter in money too. You got to find a way, even paycheck to paycheck, save your $10 a month. But to say that all these young pups out there that are, male or female, that are out there spending money in these different places, what advice would you give them?
You hit the nail on the head with having an investor's mindset and creating the habit of saving and investing. You hit the nail on the head. But I would also say, for me, one of the biggest lessons was, and this comes from a personal development side, when thinking about wealth creation for yourself, it's, talent can help you achieve success, but character will help you sustain success. When I first made my millions of dollars, right, I didn't have the character to sustain it. So that's why it was taken from me. My ego was big. I thought what made me successful was having all of these materialistic things, and it doesn't, and I love having nice things, right?
Sure, me too.
For me, buying this watch after I sold my company, it has a meaning. A lot of these things have meaning. Like if it has meaning behind it, but God bless, go and create that life for But you have to realize that ultimately it's about your character. And at that time, I was being very selfish.
Okay.
And I realized that I needed to, start thinking about, how am I showing up in the world? How am I actually being a leader? How am I actually helping the people around me, serving the people that my team, that community? And I really, at the time, I just didn't have this character of wealth or, of actually being a leader.
I love that. And, by the way, we both want you to have a Lamborghini. We both want you to have a Ferrari. We both want you to have a jet. We just want you to have it in the right time, right? For the right reasons. But So you find a lead daily, guys, 80 million unique visitors, right?
Yeah, 80 to 100 articles per day. It went from the 3 of us to 200 employees. It was one of the best journeys of my life.
And how old were you when you sold it? When it was sold?
So I was 30 years old.
30 years old, everybody. Whatever you take from it, but it's about a $50 million sale, right? So, bam, you're back. Now you're really, really back. What did it, I take everyone through it. I'm just curious. I ask people this in my private life. I've never asked somebody on camera. What was that day like? What was it like to go, oh my gosh, like what's that feel like to have a day like that or a moment like that when my life just friggin' changed?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting because the initial feeling was a little uneasy. I actually was a lot of what ifs clicked in for me in the very beginning. It wasn't like, oh, I hit it. It was like, you have partners, you have investors. I felt very much like I didn't want to sell the company. This wasn't like something I wanted. We had long board meetings and we saw Facebook changing their algorithms, and Elite Daily for me was like this brand that I wanted to really continue to take to become the biggest millennial media company in the United States. So afterwards, and for real, it was like, man, I feel like my baby just got taken away from me. And it was until I called some of my closest friends and told them, and they were like, "G, you always want to jump out without a parachute, man. And listen, man, for once in your life, let this soak in what you just did. Let this soak in." And that was the moment, like hearing it from one of my good friends. That was like, oh, wow. And then it was, for me, where it really hit for me was when I was able to really go and talk to my father first and tell him, I want to pay off all the family's debt. I want to pay off all the mortgages. And then I took my mom, after I paid that off, I took my mom, she wanted this Jaguar, I took my mom and got her Jaguar. I took my dad, got him a Mercedes-Benz convertible, which he loved and picked, surprised my younger sister with the car of her dreams, and just...
And by the way, you guys, he still, because I know the story, he still hasn't listed anything he did for himself, have you noticed? Finally, what is the big thing you did for yourself?
Yeah, I mean, the 2 biggest things, the first was I bought myself this watch. I just wanted to basically have something on my wrist that just reminded me of it. But the truth is, and this is what comes when it comes to having that character and having that wealth mindset, it's like a billionaire's mindset, really. For me, I put it, after that, paying the debt, I got the watch, I put it in a trust.
I know.
I didn't think about buying the next fancy exotic car or anything materialistic. I said, okay, take a step back. How do you want to, forget about the money, how do you now want to leverage this to show up in the world as a better role model? Millennials need role models right now of what it really truly means to be successful, more than just money, but actually showing up as a leader in the world and serving your community.